Good afternoon and welcome back to Tactics Board. Today we're previewing Norwich City's trip to West Bromwich Albion, and I know there might not be quite as much optimism as to the Canaries' Championship playoff hopes, but I'm sure David Wagner hasn't given up, and I'm going to take a look at the team I expect him to deploy at the Hawthorns. So I'll get stuck straight in with Angus Gunn in goal, Max Aarons at right back, Andrew Mbamidele and Jakob Sorensen at centre back, Dimitris Giannoulis at left back, Isaac Hayden and Gabriel Sara in midfield, with Liam Gibbs slightly in front of them, Adam Idah on the right, Ono Hernandez on the left, and Josh Sargent on his own up front. So to talk you through those choices, I think there's probably been a little bit more of a sway towards Tim Krul in recent weeks because, to be honest, this is a team that looks like it lacks leadership and experience. And although Wagner has mitigated those factors in his recent press conferences and talked about how he feels like his young players should be grasping the opportunity, it does feel like you probably need someone in there to go and grab a hold of things. But to do that at Angus Gunn's expense does feel incredibly harsh given how good he's been this season. I think he's got the best XG differential of any Championship goalkeeper. Really rarely lets Norwich down, and certainly hasn't in the ways that Tim Krul has sometimes this season. And I'm not sure if I expect him to depart this summer, but it feels like it could be coming towards an end. And if Norwich are trying to look forward and rebuild things, then it would be a surprise to see Angus Gunn replaced for any of these final two games. It feels possible, but I've gone for Angus Gunn because I think he will still start. Max Aarons at right back, not really too much of a choice. Sam Byram's back, and although defensively things have looked frail, Wagner has spoken very positively about Aarons, and we know how important attacking fullbacks are in his system. So I'd be surprised to see him dropped at centre-back. It's more a case of necessity than anything else. Omobamidele and Sorensen haven't looked great in recent games at all. But I think it's a case of, with Ben Gibson out injured and Grant Hanley the same, there's not too many players for Wagner to turn to. And I think Norwich have actually suffered from Sorensen not being in midfield, both because he's not a supremely experienced centre-back, and that's been clear in some of his positioning mishaps at times in recent games, and also because he's actually really impressed in midfield. He did that in big games against Blackburn and Millwall, Norwich City's two sort of biggest wins under Wagner, I'd suggest, and probably their two most hard-earned wins. So it's a real shame he hasn't been able to feature there more, and hopefully in the future, Norwich can build a situation where he plays there regularly. But obviously just now seems unlikely. It's a similar situation with Dimitris Giannoulis. Obviously Sam McCallum suspended, so barring Byram filling in at left back where he has previously, and that seems unlikely because he's not the most attacking fullback, and on his weaker side, that makes that even tougher. I'm not sure there's much of an alternative to Giannoulis, so I think he'll start. And then in midfield, I've gone for Isaac Hayden, which is probably my riskiest pick, but Wagner did praise his last start. I'm trying to rack my brains. All the games sort of blend into one now. I think it may have been QPR, and I wasn't particularly impressed. I didn't think he had much of an impact on the game at all, to be honest. And he probably could have been a lot quicker in the build-up phase. But if Wagner was happy with it, then I can see him probably starting, because he's now had the rest of last weekend. He's had more than that, sort of a week and a half now to recover from that QPR game. And I expect to see him starting, but that's quite a difficult one to predict, to be honest. What isn't difficult is to predict that Gabriel Sara will be in midfield, an absolute star performer under David Wagner. I'd like to see him pick up the levels a little bit from recent games. I don't think he's been quite where he was around the time of that Millwall win. I think he probably needs a little bit more consistency in terms of his quality, and that's something he's struggled with since arriving at Carrow Road. But very difficult to see him being dropped, especially with the lack of options Norwich have. And one positive to Hayden being in midfield, and part of the reason why I feel like he probably will be in there, is because it allows Liam Gibbs to go further forward. And we saw how good he was in that Blackburn game. And Wagner spoke about him as a number 10 earlier in the season, and I actually doubted that, to be honest. I thought he probably suits a little bit further back more. But after seeing that Blackburn game, I'd be trying to get him into that number 10 position as much as I possibly could. And hopefully Norwich are able to bring in some genuine creativity in the summer, and they've really struggled to do that and to find the replacement for Remy Buendia. I think Marcelino Nunez has a little bit of quality, but nowhere near the consistency required for Norwich to rely on him in that position. So I'd go with Liam Gibbs in there, and I think Wagner likes him in there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in that position. Ono Hernandez, similarly, has really thrived under Wagner and is one of his favourites. Obviously, got that new contract, and I think if there's any hope of any sort of positive atmosphere from those travelling Norwich fans, they probably do need to see Ono Hernandez on the pitch. I'm not sure Adam Idah will get the same reception. Obviously, scored Norwich City's last goal in that draw against QPR, but doesn't look totally comfortable in a wide position. His touch isn't always there, and there are so many areas of his game that I still feel he needs to improve on. So hopefully over the course of this 5-year contract he's been awarded, he does manage to plug some of those gaps. But at the moment, there aren't too many options. Marquinhos hasn't really impressed. John Rowe, it feels like is still coming back from injury. I saw him play for the under-21s last Sunday, and he still looked a little bit rusty. So not too many options out there, and Idah is a player that Wagner likes. So I think it's possible we see him out on the right, and then with Josh Sargent up front. I was really struggling, actually. I didn't know if it was going to be him or Teemu Pukki that I selected, but it feels now like Norwich are moving away from that. I think if it's mathematically impossible that they qualify for the playoffs in the final game, we'll certainly see Pukki start so that he can get that send-off from the Norwich fans for his incredible time at the club. But just for what Wagner's trying to do, I don't think it's suited Pukki, and there's a reason why he hasn't scored since that win over Preston in Wagner's first league game. And yeah, I'm not sure I would be picking him either, to be honest, if I felt that there was still a chance Norwich were going to get in the playoffs, which I personally don't. But there's no way David Wagner's going to give up, and I think this is the team that he's going to send out at the Hawthorns. Hopefully Norwich can produce a slightly better performance than the ones they have in recent weeks, and they can send their fans home happy. Feels like a little bit too little too late, even if they do that. But hopefully they can inject some positivity into a fan base that's really in dire need of it before they hopefully deliver that rebuild that Wagner's spoken about. And that brings me nicely onto his press conference. So I'd recommend watching that on the Pink and YouTube channel. Loads of detail in there about where he sees the future of the club going and where he thinks the problems are now. He speaks about the fact that they've already been speaking to players and agents, and we've got his quotes on Pinken.com and the Pinken Plus app as well. And you can subscribe to Pinken Plus now for just $1.99 a month with a 30-day free trial. So if you try it out for 30 days, don't enjoy it at all, you can cancel it without ever paying a penny, and then only £2 a month, which or less than £2 a month, which for me is an absolute bargain. I know I would say that, but go and try it for yourselves. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the Hawthorns this weekend. Have a safe journey up there, and yeah, keep it locked to Pinken channels for all the content you need around that game.